In the late 1950s, a nun from the Sisters of Loretto, an organization that ran an all-girls Catholic school, fell from the 4th floor of Loretto Hall. Since then, there's been speculation that the nun still haunts Loretto Hall to this day. There have been countless encounters among students and faculty from the nun's presence.
Patrick Stack, the director of the counseling services. The first I ever heard about the 2 nuns who had killed themselves in Loretto Hall was in March of 1988 when I became the director of the counseling services. I'd say I was here maybe a month when I heard some of the students talking about these 2 nuns who had killed themselves. But it's interesting how that all came about. What happened was that there were 2 young women, co-eds, who were in the halls, and they were crying. It was pretty late at night in March of 1988. And naturally, being the director of counseling, I went up and I asked, is there anything wrong? Can I help you? And what happened was one of the girls was pretty hysterical. She said that she had heard the story about these 2 nuns who had killed themselves and their spirits are in the hall and they make noises at night, and it frightened her. And so I asked, well, have you ever heard these noises? And she said she did. Well, I didn't know what to think at that point. I asked the other person if she had heard the noises also, and she said, no, I never heard them, but I'm really being frightened by my friend. So what happened was that I asked them if there was anybody else that they were aware of who had heard about these 2 nuns killing themselves, and they said yes. They told me to speak to the RAs, which I did. The RAs made me aware that apparently a long time ago, now I was told it happened around the 1920s, 1930s, that there were 2 young nuns who were working in the residential halls. At that time, it was Webster College, and it was a girls' college. And for some reason or another, the story developed that one of them became pregnant. Now, who was responsible for the pregnancy? That was something that was never talked about as part of the story. But apparently, as the months went by and the nun's stomach has grown larger and larger, and she not telling her superiors about what has happened, she could not handle the pressure of the stress anymore, and she attempted to kill herself. The way she was going to kill herself was jumping out the window of one of the turrets in Loretto Hall. The story goes on that in the process of doing this, another nun, young one who was a friend of hers, attempted to try to stop her, and accidentally both of them went out the window, and everything became hush-hush. Well, that's basically what the story that I've heard. And what has happened is over the years, this story has grown and grown. The details of it have never been added to, but rather the story itself has been spread from one generation of students to the other.
Over the years, due to stories and rumors, the myth of the Loretto Nun has escalated into a horror story rather than an actual historic happening. The following are recollections from actual residents from Loretto Hall on their supposed encounters with the nun.
When I was in class one time, my ex-roommate Russ did a hypnosis session on someone, and throughout the hypnosis, the subject got scared, and the entire room got freaked out. So they ended the hypnosis session, and after that, Russ couldn't sleep in his bed that night. So I slept on his bed, the lower bunk bed, and he slept on the floor. And this is probably about 6 hours after the whole thing occurred. I was just starting to drift off to sleep when I felt something really grasp my ankle and start pulling me into the wall.
She'd were closed doors or drawers in the middle of the night, which wouldn't open, but you could hear them shut randomly. She would move things around, take posters off the wall. You could hear the floor creak like someone walked across it, and then lay in the middle of the floor, and they would walk across.
In my room, I have a poster of The Exorcist, and in the middle of the night, I heard a rip all at once, not one by one. And when I woke up, the poster was laying in the middle of my floor, about 3 feet away from where it was. It was placed behind my television, so it came over my television and in front of my bed.
I first heard all the stuff about the Loretto Nun when I started burying her child. Sounds funny, but during orientation weekend, we started to hear, the tales, like at a Boy Scout, summer camp, when you're sitting around the fire, you start to hear about the haunted tales and the people who died on the bridges and stuff. Well, we were all sitting around in the lounge, and Adam and some others were telling us about the nun. And we were all like, yeah, sure, whatever. But then a couple weeks later, Adam got all of his pictures back that he developed, and he's going to send them off to his mom and show him all of, the people who he's in charge of as an RA. Well, one of the pictures shows me sitting on the couch with Louis and Jean to either side. I've got my arms around them and my feet out, and on one picture beforehand, both of them were kissing my cheeks, and there's this white blob above my head. And then in the next picture, in succession, we're all just sitting there again. But in that picture, I've got this belly and these two distinct lumps that are going to be breasts. Now, this is me after my freshman 15. Not exactly what you'd call pregnant, and I was thinner probably the beginning of the year before, junk food and late night papers. But there were no pillows on the couch. My arms were out around both of them, and my knees were out as well. And so it doesn't really make sense where this extra lumpage came from. And Louis and Jean were still in proper proportion for themselves, so it's not like just a line across the picture was smeared either. The freaky part was the two lumps did look like breasts, and then the belly had a starting point and an ending point. So I began to look pregnant. But you see, the blob over my head was gone as well. And we started talking night again, when we got the pictures back, about the nun, about how she got impregnated, and the rumor goes that she either hung herself or jumped out of the 3rd or 4th story window. Which is a little freaky, but hey, suicide, great. Point being, in the picture before, there was a white glow over my head, and it was just bare wall. It wasn't like there was glass that it could reflect on, or an electrical outlet with, electrons floating around. The thing is, it was a bare, brick painted wall, and there was just a white glow above it. And then that's when they were kissing me. And then the next picture, I was pregnant. Just kind of freaky, like the nun floats around in essence in the dorms, and when people start, committing sins of sex and adultery, and you've got two people kissing me, the next thing you know, you watch out, you could be pregnant. This would be great, lesson for teenage girls to learn, but as an 18-year-old guy, it's a little freaky. One of my friends, out of humor, ended up buying me a mom-to-be little pink ribbon. It's got a little circle and little fluffy things and ribbons. It says mom-to-be. And I put it on my door. Well, yeah, that's just fun. But the thing is, about the nun, sometimes like at 3 or 4 in the morning, if I'm up doing a paper, or, in someone else's room socializing, we'll start to hear steps outside the door. You hear like a little knocking or something. You open your door and you look out, there's no one there. But once I put that ribbon up on my door, the significant times that I heard footsteps down, my hall, decreased. And just kind of the weird things didn't happen as much. Which is almost like I was putting out a picture, paying my respects to the nun, and saying, okay, look, I get what you're saying. Sex leads to the pregnancy, leads to how you died, and that's the connection. It was like paying homage to the nun. And I did feel a little better, because it's something I can almost take as a joke, like, oh yeah, I'm pregnant. But it was a little more comforting that way. And since it's been still up on my door, and now almost at the end of school, so I've had it up all year, weeks, months. And hey, yeah, I'm an 18-year-old guy with a pink ribbon on my door. That's attractive. But, I don't really want to take it down anytime soon.
Is the myth of the Loretto Nun just a scare tactic used by RAs to frighten incoming freshmen? Or is there some truth behind it? Does a nun really walk the halls of Loretto at night? Was there a murder? Was there a suicide? We may never know the real truth.